denizens of the night. Welcome to another episode of the macabre, the terrifying. Tonight, we'll head to Tornado Alley. But surprisingly, it's not the tornadoes we have to fear, but something else lurking among the corn stalks. Ellie is a young girl growing up in the small community of Harmon, Kansas. Life in Harmon revolves around the church, but young Ellie can already tell she's different than the rest of her community. That feeling begins to take a more concrete shape when she meets Amy, a Bonafide outcast in her own right and a fast friend for Ellie. But everything changes one night when Amy disappears. Where could she have gone? Oh, but wait! Isn't that her out there among the swaying stalks, beckoning? This story is called Something in the Cornfields Took the Woman I Loved and was written by External Candy 548.
I'm 40 now. I have a life that, on paper, looks just fine. A small apartment in a city far from home, a job that pays the bills, a cat that ignores me unless she's hungry. And I have a scar. It's a thin, pale trio of lines on my left forearm that never tans and is always, always cold to the touch. It's a permanent reminder of the night I learned that some things don't just disappear, they get replaced. I'm telling you this because for 24 years I've told no one. I'm telling you this because a small, stupid part of me holds on to the impossible hope that she's out there, somewhere, and she'll read this. Growing up in Harmon, Kansas, was like living in a shoebox with the lid on tight. The town was a flat patch of dust and faith, surrounded on all four sides by an ocean of whispering cornfields. Life revolved around two things, the harvest and the First Baptist Church of Harmon County. God wasn't just a concept, he was a neighbor, the kind who watched you through the curtains and kept a detailed list of your every misstep. I'd checked out of the whole religion thing by the time I was 12. I could see the hypocrisy plain as day. The same deacons who preached charity would foreclose on a struggling family's farm. The women who led the chastity pledge group were the town's most vicious gossips. But in a town like Harmon, checking out wasn't really an option. You went to church, you bowed your head, you pretended to believe, or you became a pariah. So I played my part. I wore the floral print dresses, I mumbled the hymns, and I counted the seconds until the sermon was over. It was on one of those suffocating Sunday mornings that I met Amy. I was outside the fellowship hall, trying to discreetly peel the label off my water bottle, when a plume of smoke drifted past my face. I looked up, and there she was, leaning against the peeling paint of the church wall, a lit cigarette pinched between two fingers. She wore a black t-shirt for a band I'd never heard of. Her jeans had holes in the knees, and her hair was a messy, dark shag that fell into her eyes. In our world of pressed slacks and pastel colors, she was an oil slick on a pristine puddle. She caught me staring and gave me a crooked, knowing smile. "Don't tell my mom," she said, her voice a little gravelly. "She thinks I'm in here repenting." She made air quotes with the fingers of her free hand. I think I fell in love with her right then. Not in the way I understood love to be, not the chaste, church-approved hand-holding that led to a modest wedding, but in a way that felt like a secret key turning in a lock I didn't know existed inside me. It was a terrifying, exhilarating click. We became friends after that. In a town with only 40 kids in the entire high school, it wasn't hard. But our friendship felt different. It was an alliance. We were two islands in a sea of beige conformity. Amy was everything I wasn't. Bold, fearless, and utterly unconcerned with what people thought of her. The biggest problem was that I'd failed my permit test twice. My dad said I had a lead foot and the spatial awareness of a stunned squirrel, which was probably fair. This meant I was grounded, car-wise, for the foreseeable future. So, Amy drove. Her car was a beat-to-hell Ford pickup that smelled like old coffee, gasoline, and her cheap cherry perfume. We called it the Beast. Most of our time together was spent after dark. We'd wait until my parents' bedroom light went out, then I'd slip out my window, and she'd be there, the Beast idling quietly at the end of our long dirt driveway, her headlights off. We'd drive for hours, down endless gravel roads that cut through the black seas of corn and soy. We'd listen to her scratchy mixtapes and talk about everything and nothing, our dreams of escaping Harmon, the stupid things our teachers said, the suffocating weight of everyone's expectations. Those nights in the Beast were the only times I felt like I could breathe. The world opened up. Under the vast, star-dusted Kansas sky, Harmon and its church spires and its judgmental eyes felt small and 1,000,000 miles away. In the dim glow of the dashboard lights, I could be myself, and so could she. One night, parked out by the old abandoned quarry, the cicadas buzzing their deafening summer song, Amy killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy. We just sat there for a long time, looking at the moon's reflection on the still black water. "Ellie," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone?" My heart started thumping against my ribs. "Yeah, of course." She took a long, shaky breath and turned to face me. Her eyes, even in the dark, were so incredibly clear. "I don't like boys," she said. Not like I'm supposed to. I like girls." The air in the cab of the truck suddenly felt thin. I knew with a certainty that was both terrifying and thrilling what was coming next. The world narrowed to the space between us. "I like you," she whispered. And then she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a chaste peck. It was soft and hesitant at first, then firm, and it tasted like cherry chapstick and secrets. Every nerve in my body lit up like a switchboard. It was the most right, most natural thing I'd ever felt in my life. And for a few perfect seconds, I kissed her back. Then the teachings of Pastor Dave and a lifetime of Bible study verses crashed through my head like a battering ram. Abomination, unnatural, a sin against God and man. A little spark of hellfire, which they'd been so careful to plant in all of us, flared up in my gut. I'd love to tell you I was brave. I'd love to say that I didn't harbor any of that deep-seated, internalized homophobia that our town had beat into every one of us since birth. But I can't. The reality is, a part of me was terrified. Not of her, but of myself, of what that kiss meant. I pulled away, a strangled noise escaping my throat. I shoved the truck door open and stumbled out into the humid night. "Ellie, wait!" Amy called, Her voice cracked with confusion and hurt. "I can't," I gasped, and I ran. I ran down the gravel road, my lungs burning, not stopping until I was home, safe in my room with the door locked. I ignored her for the next 3 days. She called the house phone, and I told my mom I was busy. She left a note in my locker, and I threw it away without reading it. I saw her truck parked outside the diner, and I crossed the street to avoid walking past. Each time, a fresh wave of shame and guilt washed over me. I wanted to see her, to explain, but the fear was stronger. The little preacher in my head was screaming too loud. On the 4th day, Amy disappeared. It started as a rumor at school, then a frantic phone call from her mother to mine. By evening, Sheriff Miller's car was parked in her driveway. Amy hadn't come home. Her truck, the Beast, was gone. No one had seen or heard from her. I immediately assumed the worst, and my stomach twisted into a knot of pure ice. My mind reeled with 2 equally horrific possibilities. 1, someone had seen us at the quarry. Someone had found out she was gay, and in a town like Harmon, that was a dangerous secret to have. Maybe some boys from the football team had decided to teach her a lesson. 2, she'd run away because of me, because I had rejected her and made her feel like a freak. The thought that my last action toward her was one of cowardice and cruelty made me so sick I couldn't eat. The town buzzed. Search parties were organized. Flyers with Amy's smiling black and white school picture were tacked to the bulletin boards at the post office and the grocery store. Days bled into a week. The hope in people's voices started to fray. The next Sunday, the church was packed. People came seeking comfort, answers. Pastor Dave stood at the pulpit, his face grave. He spoke of the prodigal son, of lost sheep. And then his tone shifted. It hardened. "Sometimes," he boomed, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, "our children stray from the path. They're tempted by the dark and sinful whispers of the world. And sometimes God, in his infinite and terrible wisdom, must make an example. His judgment is swift. We must pray for Amy's soul, that she might find repentance wherever she may be." He didn't say the words, but everyone knew what he meant. He was calling her a sinner. He was framing her disappearance not as a tragedy, but as a righteous punishment. He was saying she deserved it. Something in me snapped. The years of forced smiles and quiet obedience evaporated in a blaze of pure rage. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Every head turned to me. My mom grabbed my arm, her face a mask of horror. I shook her off. "You're wrong," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough for the first few pews to hear. "You're all wrong!" And I stormed out, slamming the heavy oak doors behind me. The gasp from the congregation was the last thing I heard before I was out in the blinding Kansas sun. I had never felt so alone, or so certain I was right. That night I was in my room, staring out at the fields, when I heard it. A small tink against the glass of my window. My blood ran cold. I crept closer, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Another tink, louder this time. I peered through a gap in the curtains. and I saw her, standing at the edge of my lawn, where the neatly cut grass met the wild tangle of the tree line, was Amy. The breath I didn't realize I was holding came out in a ragged sob of relief. It was a physical thing, like a lead weight being lifted from my chest. She was okay. She hadn't been killed. She hadn't run away forever. She had come back. I threw the window open, leaning out into the cool night air. Amy! Oh my God, where have you been? Are you okay? Everyone's been looking for you. She just smiled, a wide, lazy smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm fine, Ellie, she said. Her voice was right, but flat, like a recording. Come on out. I want to show you something. She gestured with her head toward the dark woods behind her. A sick feeling, a cold, oily dread began to curdle in my stomach, overriding my relief. Something was wrong. Amy? What's going on? Where's your truck? I asked, stalling. Doesn't matter. Just come with me. It's in the forest. It's beautiful. Her smile stayed fixed in place, an expression plastered on her face. That's when I started to notice the small things, the details that were just off. Amy was a fidgeter. She was always pushing her hair out of her eyes, or tapping her foot, or worrying the hem of her sleeve. This girl stood perfectly, unnaturally still. The moonlight caught her face, and her eyes seemed too wide, too dark, and they weren't blinking, not once. And her clothes? She was wearing the same black t-shirt and jeans she'd had on the night I ran from her. They looked pristine, not like she'd been living in them for a week. There wasn't a speck of dirt on them. I knew, in that instant, with a gut-deep animal certainty that defied all logic, I knew that the thing standing on my lawn was not Amy. The real Amy was gone, and this thing was wearing her like a suit. I can't, I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. My parents will hear me. The smile on its face didn't falter, but an edge crept into its voice. That flat, recorded tone now had a sharp undertone of impatience. They're asleep, Ellie. I've been watching. They won't wake up. Come on. I missed you. It replayed her voice, but the words felt hollow, a cheap imitation. I started to back away from the window, my hands trembling. Don't you want to come with me? It coaxed, taking a step forward out of the shadows. We can go for a drive, just like we used to. As it moved into a patch of light from my bedroom window, I saw something else. Around its neck was the tiny silver cross necklace Amy always wore, a gift from her grandmother. But it was hanging upside down. My mind was screaming, a silent, frantic litany of no, 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 not real, not Amy. I'm not coming out, I said, trying to make my voice firm. The smile on its face finally dropped. It vanished completely, leaving behind a blank, slack-jawed expression. The head tilted at an angle that was too sharp, too fast, an angle that would have made a human neck pop. Yes, you are. The voice was no longer Amy's. It was a layered, distorted chorus of clicks and whispers that was somehow shaped into words. It moved with impossible speed. One moment it was on the lawn, The next, it was scrambling up the side of my house, fingers and toes finding purchase in the siding like some obscene insect. It was at my window in a second, its face pressed against the screen. The eyes were black, pupilless pits. It smelled of damp soil and something rotten, like meat left in the sun. I screamed and slammed the window shut, fumbling with the lock just as it began to claw at the screen, tearing through the mesh with long, pale fingers. It looked like Amy, but it was all wrong. Its limbs were too long, its joints bent at slightly the wrong places. Then it started to speak again, and this is the part that haunts me more than any other. It wasn't the chorus of whispers anymore. It was my own voice. It was my voice, panicked and breathless, from the night by the quarry. "I can't," it mimicked, my own terrified sob perfectly reproduced. "This is wrong." I scrambled back, falling over my desk chair and landing hard on the floor. My heart felt like it was going to explode. The thing ripped the screen away and began to pound on the glass. "Disgusting!" it snarled, again in my voice, using the word I'd thought but never dared say aloud. It was playing back my own deepest shame, my own bigotry, and using it as a weapon. The glass spiderwebbed with cracks. With a final sickening crunch, the pane shattered inward. The thing dropped into my room, landing in a low crouch that a person shouldn't be able to hold. As I crab-walked backward, desperate to get away, it lunged. Its arms shot out, impossibly long. I threw myself sideways, but its fingers, hard and sharp as bits of bone, raked across my forearm. A searing, cold pain shot up my arm, so intense it was dizzying. It didn't feel like a cut. It felt like being branded with ice. A fresh scream tore from my throat, one of both pain and terror, and it propelled me to my feet. I fled my room, slammed my bedroom door, and sprinted down the hall to the front of the house. I could hear it behind me, a wet thud against the door, then silence. Its footsteps were unnaturally quiet, but I could feel its presence chasing me, a wave of cold air at my back. I reached the front door, my fingers slipping on the deadbolt. I finally got the lock to turn and threw the door open, stumbling out onto the porch. My plan was to run to the nearest neighbor a quarter-mile down the road, but as I turned, I saw it. It stood in the doorway of my house, half in, half out of the shadows. But it wasn't crossing the threshold. It just stood there, one foot on the welcome mat, a look of confusion on its wrong Amy face. It was as if there was an invisible barrier it couldn't pass. It looked at me, and its jaw unhinged, opening far too wide, and it let out a screech, a sound that wasn't human or animal. It was a high-frequency grating noise that felt like it was tearing at the inside of my skull. Then, as if giving up, it backed away from the door. It turned its gaze toward the woods from whence it came, and it slunk back into the yard. Its movements were what truly broke my mind. It moved backwards, its limbs contorting, the spine seeming to ripple and bend at impossible angles. It dropped to all fours, its body folding in on itself like a collapsing spider, and scuttled with terrifying speed into the tree line, disappearing into the absolute dark. I stood on that porch until the sun came up, shaking so hard I thought my teeth would crack. I looked down at my arm. 3 parallel gashes wept thin, dark blood. The skin around them was already pale and puckered, as if touched by frost. I cried that night. I cried until I had nothing left. I wasn't crying because I almost died. I was crying because in that moment, I knew with a bone-deep finality that the only girl I had ever loved was gone forever. I don't know what happened to the real Amy. Maybe that thing got her out on a dark road. Maybe those boys from town did get to her. Maybe she just ran away to escape the suffocating hate of Harmon and me, and the thing that came to my window was just a terrible coincidence. I will never know, and that, I've learned, is the worst part. The not knowing is a wound that never, ever scabs over. I moved away from Harmon the day I turned 18, and I have never been back. My life is quiet now. It's safe. Even now, as I type this, my fingers trace the 3 pale lines on my arm. They didn't heal right. They're a permanent part of me, a physical map of my grief and my terror. They're the one piece of evidence that tells me I didn't imagine it all. So I'm writing this down, all of it, putting it out into the void of the internet. I know the odds are 1,000,000,000 to 1, but I have to try. Amy, if you're out there, if you ran away and built a new life for yourself somewhere you could finally breathe, I'm so sorry. I was a coward, and I have never, not for one single day, stopped thinking about you.
Oh, man. Is someone cutting an onion in here? What a great story from a writer we've not heard from before. I especially enjoyed the prose. I suspect we'll hear more from this writer in the future. You know I have a soft spot for bittersweet horror. If you enjoyed this story as well, please check out more from our author in the links below. Don't forget to leave a like on this video and leave a comment for me too. Whatever you do, be careful with your words and reactions. And don't fall asleep.